All right, guys, it's 11. Let's get rolling here. As I told you about Brent, a little bit about Brent. I'll tell you more in 1 second. But just to get everybody up to speed with what's going on, the micro and macro picture is U.S. China trade. You should know that. I'm not gonna cover and talk a lot about that because him and I'll discuss it as part of what we're going to talk about. It's going to be mostly audio. I might flash to some of my charts, but for the most part, like last week, you'll just be looking at this slide and listening to Brent and I. Now, just like Brad, very similar backgrounds that Brent has with Brad. Other than Brent, actually, you went to the CME, right? Or you worked at the CME, didn't you, Brent?
Yeah, I traded in the Eurodollar options pit.
So he traded in Eurodollar options. I clerked for Eurodollar option guys. What years were you there?
Between 97 and 2001.
Almost same years. And I guess, I look back on it, you would have looked familiar, but I never remember knowing you. I
Yeah,
was
I looked a lot different than I do today. I had long blonde hair.
I was directly across the whole pit in the back months on that little perch where the pit reporters in the light blue jackets would
For
stand on
sure.
the thing. So I stood right in front of them watching your pit. So you guys that got your back month futures off would do it through us.
Yeah.
I
For
had to
those
actually get glasses for that.
yeah, for those of you who don't know, that was a huge pit. I mean, it was probably the size of a football field, and my pit was at the other end.
I had to get glasses just to see. I never needed glasses until now, but I was in my early 20s. I had to get a low prescription just to make out the signals. That's how far it was. And all I needed it was work. I'd keep it in my yellow smock or whatever. But those days are gone. If you look at, there was four vibrant full pits between the CME and the Board of Trade, all consolidated down to maybe, I don't know, 10% of those four full floors. And they just have those pits for formalities. You know what I mean? I don't think they open outcry has been dead a long time, and there's some option pits maybe active, but huge business consolidated to the computer. It started in 96 from the firm Brent and I went to or got hired at. In 2000. Brent, when did you get hired there?
Like 2003. I had been off the floor though. I was running some overnight options books and trading on like the really old school Globex in 98 and 99. And then went back down on the floor and traded and decided I wanted to be back up on the computer. I was having more success on that.
And then you heard about ITG.
Yeah, I had a friend who worked there, college friend, Brandon Flugel. Do you remember him?
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, "Hey, I'm at this great firm. You should come over here." And I went over there, and the rest is kind of history. It really, that firm, Dave in particular, really helped me find out who I was as a trader and helped me catapult my trading to the next
Niche.
level.
You were put in the proper niche, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because they put me as equity futures. And that was
Mm-hmm.
the right niche in 2000. And then, but you're right. He had a way with playing to your strengths.
Yeah.
That's what was important. Now, I'm not going to get into a lot about Brent's background because it's similar to Brad. I mean, in mine, as far as same firm, different approaches, not exactly the same approaches. Um, maybe yours and Brad's were similar. Would you say?
A little bit. I think that could be just because Brad sat next to me, and we both kind of learned what worked and what didn't. And so we both. I mean, we've traded next to each other for pretty much our entire careers.
Were you there when we were at the original office?
Oh yeah,
Okay. And you were in the what they call the garage?
yeah. I think I got put back by right next to the. They built a station for me right next to the bathroom. It's
Well,
awful.
when they made the new office, I remember Dave bringing us in and asking, what would you guys like? And first thing was, well, make the bathrooms like close, but not 5 feet away from workstation,
Right.
because I was near one myself. But um, all of that, it was in '04, I think November '04 we moved to a new facility. And but most guys got the job at this place by knowing someone that worked there. You know,
Yeah.
that was the way it worked, pretty much. But these days, and I tell guys this, that most that get into this business don't know what a prop firm was or is, and yet it's the venue of what you're trying to become, right? I mean, if that's the
Hmm.
venue of professional traders, a prop,
Yeah.
whether it's stocks or futures or whatever, and it's that camaraderie, it's that it's that connection you can make. You made it with Brad. So since you left and now you still trade, you're trading um, futures and stock. You're trading more futures than Brad is,
Yes.
probably, right?
That's yes, definitely.
And what market? The S&Ps?
Yeah, primarily the S&Ps, but I also trade oil and some fixed income products.
Um, let's go into what we talked about before we went on live. We were talking about, first of all, I'm not gonna do it now, but before we're over with, Brent and Brad do a joint podcast. So these guys, everybody knows about Brad's My Trading Life, and they listen to those. They're 3-4 minute segments. What Brent and Brad have done one called the Stupid News Podcast. Awesome name. You've only done one so far, right?
Yeah, we literally just started it.
All right. So the first one they did was about 15 minutes. It's awesome. It talks about Amazon and Tesla about and Brad touched upon how markets get overbought, oversold on dumb news. And the dumb
Hmm.
news on Amazon was Buffett was going to buy a bunch,
Right.
right?
He announced that he was taking a stake in Amazon.
He was taking a stake in it. So you guys let it rally and then got short in different
Yes,
ways, not just outrights necessarily, but you can make option plays on it, right?
correct.
All right. So you guys can listen to that. I'll pop in the link after today's session. But and another thing, Brad's been on TV. He's been on. Were you on the first or second CME TV telecast?
The second one.
Second one. So Anthony Credelli is an ex-pit trader. He owns CME Radio. They went on. Are they still going to do the TVs?
I don't know. I haven't talked to Anthony in a while.
Because there was talk of me getting on there. I got to see where where was it in the city? Where's the studio at?
Yeah, we filmed it down at I don't know. There's a university on the south side of Chicago, and we just used one of their studio rooms and
So
filmed
it's
it.
is it? Do they have it all the time, or they just go there when they're gonna
I
film
think
it?
they just rent it out and
Got it.
rent it out there specifically when they're filming the show.
He's not doing like one a week. I don't think they're doing it that often.
I think he was doing one every other week.
Okay, I haven't. I only seen a couple. But anyways, Brent has been on there, and then before that, the CME had some sort of like seminar or event, and you were at a panel, or he was at a podium, and you were kind of getting interviewed. Who was the other guy?
Yeah. I can't remember
Pretty
his
a
name.
similar background of us, was
Yeah.
top guy or whatever. So those two guys were up there. I shared that link like whenever you did it. It might have been 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think that was a while ago.
Yeah. But about 2 or 3 months ago, Brent was on the CME TV, and then you guys could search and see that. So the point is, when the CME brings guys on, and maybe you don't know this, but they vet them out because it's a CME, right? So I think they don't want to just bring any knucklehead on there, but
Right.
they they just bring guys on, and then there's a lot of great traders, Brett, that they're awesome, but then they can't articulate. And you knew some of them from the prop days.
Oh yeah.
Awesome traders, but they couldn't teach it, right? Articulate.
Right. Articulation is sometimes really hard for some guys.
Yeah. No matter how good they were and whatever. That's what you and Brad do really well, is all that combination of being able to do it, being able to talk about it and explain it pretty well. So
I
what
appreciate that. Thank you.
yeah, no, my pleasure. So what Brett and I were talking about that I don't want to go too deep into because I want to save it for now was the whole stupid news thing is when it's news that gets the market strong temporarily, which makes it expensive, or bearish news that makes it cheap, but it's just temporary. It's like, okay, this isn't going to last. And that's what these guys have named it, use it. And it's not a new phenomenon. It's been around
No.
since they invented price, right?
Yeah, and it's not going anywhere either. The computers aren't going to take it away. In fact, they might even exaggerate some of the moves.
Excellent point. And it's not the edge ain't going away.
Right.
That's why I named all my stuff the edge from the beginning, is because you got to have one.
You that's a truth.
If you don't, you're just at best going to be zero. You're going to be average. You're going to hang around zero P&L wise at best. And you don't
Hmm.
want to do this for zero. But so the Stupid News podcast, I'll share the link. The best bet though is to sign up so you're alerted when you guys do new ones, and that's how it works, I believe.
Yeah, we'll try to be we're like I said, we just got that started and we're going to try to get out one, maybe two a week, and pretty much right after we do the trade, so you could follow along and see.
The other thing is neither one of these guys are selling anything, and they don't have plans on selling anything. So when
No.
they talk and they do these CME things or do stuff for me, they're doing it because they like helping other people and talking about it. And it's not, there's no, and even if they were selling something, that wouldn't make it bad. But the fact that they're not, I think it make it even more genuine. I just wanted to bring that up. All right, so into the stupid news. I asked Brent before I came on at 11. So would you consider this whole U.S.-China thing on a very macro level kind of stupid on a bigger level? And then go ahead and talk about what you were saying.
Sure. So I mean, stupid news and is kind of hard to say on a full macro level because I don't think any of us know what's really going on behind the curtain. But I think there are trades within that, within the existing trend that happen that you could call stupid news. And that could be something yesterday that I was looking at. We were talking about this earlier. Is the collapse of the China deal, and the increased rhetoric over the weekend, caused the equity markets to pretty much just crumble yesterday, right? And what I find is that when something's in a big trend like that, unless it's like a real piece of news, it's going to be hard for that to change the trend. You know, on a downtrending day like we had yesterday, unless it's a real piece of news, it might get us a pop if there's something that's positive that's said, but for the most part, it's going to go right back down to where it was. And so we did have an example of that yesterday. I wanted to be short just because I didn't think that I thought the collapse of these talks is kind of a bigger deal than what maybe previously was thought. So it made sense to me that we were, selling off so hard yesterday, but I just couldn't bring myself to sell into it because it's hard to tell where you're wrong if it moves back against you because you could see, I mean, if you just look at a chart from yesterday, or if any of you were following along yesterday, like some of those pullbacks were pretty severe. And so unless you have like a good technical indicator that you're using to trade off of, which is great for some people, fine. But for me, I was just sat and waited, and I was like, surely somebody, the president or somebody from China is going to tweet something or say something that gives us a sellable rally. And sure enough, that happened right around just after noon or lunch or something. And Trump had a couple of tweets mentioning that, talks are still going to happen and, the tariffs aren't going to hurt the U.S. consumer. And it caused the SPUs to rally, I think, like 20 points. And so that was the key I was looking for. And that's when I started selling in because I thought that's not actual, like, real solid news. It's just simply,
It's
it,
stupid news.
it's stupid news because it's not meaningful.
Hey, I got to write this down. Sellable rally. That's a good way to put it. A sellable rally is something, right? It's a pop to
Mhm.
give you an opportunity to sell, so you're not in a hole. You don't feel
Right.
like you're in a hole because if the market's moving down and you sell it, you don't know if you're selling any kind of hiccup back. You're like, oh, am I at the bottom? Am I at the bottom? Am I at the bottom? Because you sold it potentially at the bottom. But at least with a pullback, that rubber band may be stretched enough so
Hmm.
you're going to take heat. How much, you know what I mean? You're just always probably in a better spot on a pullback. But 20 points is a hell of a pullback. What else
It
do you
is.
look for?
So, I mean, that's when you can use some of your technicals.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And that's when, now I think a lot of people get tied up in like, well, I missed this 20-point rally or missed this 20-point sell off that happened afterwards. And as a trader, you have to realize that you're here to make good one good trade. If you can make one fantastic trade in a day, and you can do it with, the appropriate size, that's all you need. So if you're patient enough to wait for that, which is very hard to do, easier said than done, you're going to be on the road to success. And so I sat and I just waited and waited. And so my first sell point was the top of a Bollinger Band that you can put on like a 5-minute chart or a 15-minute chart. I don't love those, but that started to be a signal for me. And then another technical that I like to use is exponential moving average on a 5-minute chart with 15 bars.
Let's say that
And
again with the moving average.
it's exponential,
Right.
and I use it on a 5-minute chart, and
Okay.
it's 15-minute bars.
How could wait
Or
5
sorry,
minutes?
15 bars, 5-minute
15
bars,
bars. Got
15 of them. So the time period is a 5-minute chart with the number of periods included in the moving average is 15.
it. Got it. The moving average is 15. And
Right.
I always tell people the only way technicals are going to help is if they have to be used with other things, right? A lot of
Mhm.
people, you're not going to be a Bollinger Band expert, moving average expert, Fibonacci expert, and that's all you use. They just have to be referenced to get you in on the basis of like what you're talking about,
Right, and
right?
it's kind of an area too, right?
Mhm.
So that's tends to be like I'm looking for this area of where can I sell and where can I get in. And so they had blown through the EMA, or exponential moving average, on the way up. And so as we were coming down, that was the part that I was looking for it to really break. Now I'd sold small. I couldn't. I'm Because you don't know how high, when the market's stretched 80 handles to the downside, you don't know how high up that could be. And if you sell too early, I mean, you could still be taking 10, 15 handles in the face. So you really have to trade it small until you see the trade working. And then when it starts working, then you can start to be aggressive. And so that's kind of what I did. I was selling like a 2 lot, another 2 lot, and just playing it really small until I saw my trade working out. And then I was able to add once it started working.
So let me draw this on here. You got a moving average and the market goes through it. You want to see it get below fail
Yeah.
on the back on the downside.
Yep.
And then when you say you see the trade working, is it as simple as what? Going your way, but by how much? What do you see? Some lows?
So right. So it depends. I mean, every trade's a little bit different, and and I think people need to be careful about getting, tied into some hard and fast rule, because everything's a little fluid. So for me, the yesterday, it was a specific trade, and it happened right when, like, the market was trading at like 28, 23, and it made a high around like 25, 28, 25, and then sold off like 5 handles. And I thought, well, that could be the top right there. And then and so I started getting into a little bit more. Like, my size was maybe like about a third of what I wanted. And then it had like this crazy move up where it just took out the high by, I think, like a quarter tick, and then immediately walked right back down 3 handles. And that for me was like, well, it should not even be back down here. And we were still way above the moving average by like 4 or 5 handles. But that point was like, I'm willing to take a bigger risk on this because it didn't follow through the way it should have.
And you got a lot of people stuck probably long in a
Exactly.
failure.
So you got people stuck long, and you got people who exited their shorts from the move where I was originally shorting. I actually puked some of mine up there. I was like, oh, that doesn't seem right. But then when it didn't hold, I re-entered the position with bigger size. So
And
you have those
it's
two
all
groups of
relative.
people.
Go ahead.
So you have those two groups of people who are now looking to get back in. You know, One, the people who are already short and just got puked out, and the people who bought above that old high looking for it to continue to move up. And so you have both of those working with everybody else who might be just initiating sell positions.
I mean, there's a courses, or not courses, slides and videos I teach about the different patterns have to have the combination of, when you have more longs, you have more sellers, and when you have
Mhm.
less shorts, you have less buyers, and that combination creates downside. right?
Hmm.
More sellers and less buyers. Price of
Right.
everything is probably going to go down. So you shook out shorts and you stuck some longs based on that little bit of a pattern. Plus,
Yeah.
there was premium built in because you felt like without that Trump impromptu comment, we wouldn't have been up there in the first place.
Right. So I thought, well, the lows are in play, and we should head down to take out the lows, and we didn't end up taking them out, but we came pretty darn close. So I stayed in the trade until the very end of the day.
Use the word that helped me out when when I make a transition of not being tick sensitive, and that's the word area. What
Hmm.
generally is an area you don't want outside that area? You feel the heat for you. You have like a 2 point area.
Well, so it depends. So a lot of times it depends on how volatile we are during the day. So like yesterday, my area of like where am I wrong is it's much wider than it would be on like say the day, maybe even like today, where it's a point and a half, maybe two. But yesterday it was like three or four. So but with that, I changed my size. So my size is maybe half or even a third of what it would normally be on a less volatile day. So if my area is bigger, the size that I'm trading is smaller.
So you could still not feel it
Right.
and you could stay as objective as possible. And this is all relevant to the person trading. If 6 lots are big to you, 2 lots are big to you, it's different. It's case by case, and that could adjust the area. It's all what you're used to. And what Brent is talking about is the fact that the the bigger the range, the more kind of slippery it's going to be, and you could still be right. So the wider
Hmm.
your area, and he adjusts for that by cutting his size, so his risk ends up being the same. So go ahead.
Right. And so it is one of those things where like, what are you comfortable with? If you are trading size that you are not comfortable with it moving and starts to affect your decision making, then you're trading too big.
Do you come in? Do you come into the day like Friday into Monday was different than
Hmm.
Monday into today? So you get comments from Trump last night, and we
Hmm.
actually reacted higher. Well, you
Right.
can't. Did you have an opinion coming into today's open?
No, I had a little bit of a bearish tilt, but no, I wasn't. I come in and just pretty much just a blank slate looking to see what's going on. I try not to get too opinionated. I like to have a opinion. I think that that's necessary, but I try to be open and realize that I'm wrong a lot. But my opinion today was like, I thought we might be able to have a continued move down because I didn't like where we stopped yesterday from a technical
Mm-hmm.
perspective. If you look at like a weekly chart or even a daily chart, you can see that back in October and November and December, like our highs were right around 2800, 2802. And to me, that says, is it that easy? You can just buy those old highs and use like the old John Murphy like textbook and get away with that? Maybe you can. I don't know. I'm a contrarian, so I feel like those are going to get taken out at some point to test anybody who bought them there. Doesn't seem
Right.
like it should be that. Doesn't seem like it should be that easy.
No, right. And so what changed it? When did you say, all right, maybe I'm not that bearish?
Uh, I'm still bearish. I just haven't found a reason to get in.
Oh, that's good. Right. So it kept you out of trouble.
Yeah,
That's a great approach. And then the other thing you said, if it's too easy for others to, they're going to get tested. Like that obvious trade. If
right. When something's so obvious, sometimes sometimes it works, but a lot of times in this market it doesn't.
Yeah. So that's great. I mean, and then it's like, well, you could be dead wrong and not have to lose money. And I tell guys that all the time. You could be wrong and make money,
Yeah,
and be right and lose money. And that's the frustration. So if you can keep yourself out of trouble and not find a reason to sell it, okay, you were bearish, but it didn't get you into trouble. You don't have to have a losing trade or trades or a bad day because you were wrong. And a lot of people get that because they don't have that open mindedness to change their mind and or execute.
Right. One thing I want to touch on that you just that we talked about just a few minutes ago was like a lot of people ask me like, "Hey, well, how do you your spots? You know, like, do you risk one tick or one handle, two handles? Like, what is your out? You know, do you have a hard and fast rule?" And I don't, because when I choose a spot to get in, my out is what price do I know is wrong and isn't. It's not like an arbitrary number. It's like, why is it wrong? What has failed and broken down to make this trade wrong? And yeah, it correlates to a price, but it's not a given like, well, I only risk a handle and a half on my trades. It's like I risk X amount, and sometimes it's only like 50 cents because hey, if it gets even three ticks higher, I know that this trade is broken and it's not working. But you have to ask why. Why is it broken? Why did the trade? Why is it is is this my out? And it shouldn't just be arbitrary. It should be like, well, I'm out because the buyers will start coming in here because we've made a new high, or because the this other correlating market has started to move higher. It could be many different things, but there should be a why as to why you get out, and not arbitrary. Does
Yeah,
that
a
make
reason,
sense?
yes, like a reason to get me out. If I'm short and I see the NASDAQ run after highs or about to take out some buy stops, why'd you get out there? Because the NASDAQ was right there ready to take out buy stops and break out to the upside.
Right.
And
And sometimes that's a great point. And so sometimes your out can be not even your price. It could be the price of another market, which causes you to get out.
or get in.
Yeah, or get in. It's a
I mean,
yeah, exactly.
those are, if I talk to myself, wait a second, but why aren't you looking for this? And I'm going to show it on my screen share. Just it's amazing when you're patient. You
Hmm.
know, the reason why when you're not patient is because you're the opposite. You're anxious. So when people say, well, why wasn't I patient? It's because you were anxious. You were worried about missing something. And when you will miss something. That's part of being patient. You got to be willing to miss something. But if you're not willing to miss something, I don't think you'll ever be consistently patient. But then when you are patient, you're like, if I wouldn't have taken that stupid ass trade, I would have been able to put myself in a position to anticipate this breakout right here, where this is the NASDAQ took off. I would have
Hmm.
seen this congestion come in. If I was bullish, I would have anticipated buy stops above this yellow box here. And then if they go and I could, even if I have to chase a little bit in the ES, there's follow through of 10 points, I'm going to get something. Right. And it's just
Right.
like if I would have waited for this to become visible, if you were bullish, right? Or something
Right.
like this. Take a look at this one. Now, this one I call a head fake. Now, I don't know it's a head fake. And hell, I might not even be bullish until I see, wait a second, this market just drove down, got everybody shook out of their longs, kind of opposite of what you were talking about. They got shook out of longs, got stuck short. And as soon as we travel through the middle, because to me, the middle is like the average of where everybody's long and short. As soon as you get
Hmm.
through the middle of it, that's this band, then it's a head fake. Look out above those consolidation highs. Doesn't work every time, but if you're bullish, this is like, let me
That's what
wait
you're
for that.
waiting for.
Yeah, that's what I'm waiting for. Maybe it slaps you in the face because you're patient. But if you're chopped up or beat up a little bit, right? Then this comes and you miss it. You either miss seeing it or pulling the trigger, right? Do you
Right.
find yourself running into that at times?
Yes.
And a lot of people think that, well, only the bad traders run into that. No, is if you're human, you run into it.
Yeah. Everybody is a victim of that kind of stuff.
You just got to know that when you see it, you are able to catch it at
Mhm.
times. You are able to be patient. Hey, listen, a big league player knows he is a big league player even when he's struggling because he knows he does hit the 95-mile-an-hour fastball. You know what I mean? Over the wall
Right.
sometimes or off the wall. He has some success at hitting the tough pitches. That's where you got to build confidence. You see some success. My first day, I got to say it, not my first day, my first month or two, but the first day, I want to see if you remember your first day you knew you could do this for a living on the screen. Mine was 222. I was trading Euro stocks a month and a half into the career, right? Into the job, and
Mm-hmm.
you're only able to trade one lots when you start, right? And
Right.
I'm a one lot trader in Euro stocks, and I made 222 ticks, which is about $2,200. And I'm like, I could do this.
That's pretty good for a one
Yeah,
lot trader. Jeez.
one lot, 222, about I would say within 2 months. And I'm like, I went to Dante and say, give me a bump, right?
Right.
But even then, it was tough to go up. Did you have that day, that week, that period, and you knew you were going to do this a long time?
Yeah, I had been on my own and been with another firm prior to coming to DE, and I was kind of like, I don't know if I've got this. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. And then it was literally like after the second month of being at DE, and I had learned some stuff about my trades where I knew that I was going to be fine.
And Dave helped you with that?
Yeah, and he didn't do anything specific other than I've said this before, I think in one of the other videos, but he taught me how to take responsibility for all of my actions. And he said, well, why did you do this? You did this trade. And, you try to make excuses. Like, don't make excuses. I mean, plot out your trades, look at the ones you've done, and define what you've done right and what you've done wrong, and take responsibility for all of your trades. And
Don't
when I
point
did,
the finger.
right, don't point the finger. Oh, the market was shitty today, and nobody made money. Yeah, that's not true. Somebody made money.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
and and so once I said, hey, you know what, I'm willing to look back at my stuff and decide, see what mistakes I've made, and see what things I've done well. As along with it, I was able to take control of my trading and take basically control of my future and say, hey, this is what I'm going to do wrong or what I'm going to do right. And what I've done wrong, I'm going to try my hardest to not do that trade anymore. And so I could recognize, oh, shoot, I'm falling into this trap of doing this trade. I just plotted this on my graphs yesterday. Don't do this one again. And
That's
that,
powerful stuff too, because if you don't take responsibility, you'll never correct anything.
right. And then you give the power to somebody else. I give the power to the market, give the power to yourself and allow yourself to be the person who can change.
The power and and the control. And you buy
Mm-hmm.
trading has taught me, I don't think people who never traded understand it, but trading has taught me to expect, anticipate before you in any walk of life. I know if my wife is going to kiss me or kick me by what I say next, right? So I can
Right.
anticipate it. And if I do it and get the kick, it's because I wanted it. I wanted to joke around. But you're
Right.
always measuring the risk all the time about what you're doing. And you know what? If there's ever, I'm okay with being wrong, but also okay with, hey, I screwed that up. I'm sorry. And I
Right.
think, right? I think good traders, unless they're yahoos, but I think they have good relationships with their spouse because they don't beat the dead horse. They're wrong because we're always
Right.
wrong a lot. You know what I mean?
Right.
No matter how good of a person you are wrong with things you do.
You're right. And I think that's a great point, Anthony, is that like, as a trader, you're so used to being wrong. Like I'm wrong way more than I am right. And so you accept it and you're like, okay, I was wrong. I'll move on. Instead of like fighting and scratching to like, I need this to be right. I need to
Yeah.
prove to everybody that I'm right about this.
I'm not talking to her for 3
Yeah.
days. I'm not sleeping in the same bed. I'm going to prove a point. And it just gets worse even if you think it got better, and that's adding to losers. But you're going to be wrong, and a lot of people will say, well, how do you make money? Well, just because you have bigger winners than your losers, or maybe you have like 3 losers within that one idea, right?
Hmm.
And you finally caught the move, and it more than made up for you had 4 trades, one idea. The 3 were small losers, the one was the breakout.
Right. And I think that's a great point too, is that like you can try one trade idea more than once. Just because it didn't work out, maybe the timing was wrong, but you can still trade within that idea. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I give up on this because you know, it didn't work out on this trade. The timing might be wrong. Don't always let it die.
Trade the same idea. I'm gonna write that down more than once, right? Trade the
Yeah.
same idea. You can trade the same idea more than once, like you did yesterday. You were short puke, got back on, put them back
Hmm.
out. Instead of adding, or instead of being so mad, why did I have to get out? This doesn't work. You re-recognized the weakness.
Right.
Yeah. Because you gotta, if you're gonna have a successful short trade, you have to have stop longs. You have to.
Yeah.
That's why it goes down. Period. I always say the exodus is where the moves come. People too many people long, and then it goes down. And then you add the shorts puking. You always puke at the high tick, and then they pull their bids, and it just makes it easier to go down. But it's like that's why news, when it's not stupid, or even when it is stupid, you could make money on it. I
Yeah.
guarantee you that if you're in front of your screen, you hear stupid news, you and Brad, you'll get long, make money, and then work the idea to sell the thing on
Right.
a longer term move lower, right?
Right. You can, and absolutely, you can do it both ways.
No, the phrase "stupid news" really resonates because I've always understood it and essentially use it. It always, but to have a phrase, I think will help other people know the why. I'm a big why guy, as you are, right? Because if you
Yeah,
don't know why,
absolutely.
you're not going to fix anything. But I'm looking at your hold on a second, this podcast, the stupid news. You guys need. Oh no, you do have it. You have a picture behind it. All right, I'll share this link when we wrap it up. But do you have plans on doing your next one, or nothing set
Yeah,
up
I
yet?
think, yeah, I think we're gonna do one maybe tomorrow and kind of talk about the Amazon, and then talk a little bit about some of the China news that we've traded, and maybe a couple other ideas. But we're gonna try to be more consistent with it.
Your pain point is probably what? I don't want to put words in your mouth. Over your career, what's been something that you always have to work on?
I have to work on my timing. I try so hard to be patient, and I'm just sometimes I just feel like I got to be in there, and a lot having a couple of rules, and we talk about that a little bit on that podcast, but having some rules that help guide me to be like, you have to be patient, you got to wait for the retest, wait for the failure, because sometimes you're just like, I feel like I'm gonna miss this. And that feeling, I don't know about you, but that feeling never goes away. I constantly am feeling like sometimes when the market's moving, I'm like, oh shit, it's getting away, I can't wait for this, I got to get in, you know.
Yeah, and how long we've been doing it? Because you're human, and what helps me is, wait a second, this anxiety is what it is. Let everybody else feel it. If you're feeling it, you could guarantee others are feeling it, right? It's a great tell.
Mhm.
Is like if I'm trying to figure out what someone's thinking, well, they're human. If unless I'm thinking, unless I'm talking with a tiger or something, they're not human. It's hard to figure them out. But a human, you're trying to figure out a human. How do you feel? And then you could project that onto that person, and it helps. Like,
Right.
I'm feeling anxious. I wonder if everybody's anxious. And then if they are, I'm going to get myself in trouble being with them.
That's a great point.
Yeah, it's just, to me, it's just putting words on how you feel. Well, what if everybody's like that? Because they're all afraid of missing stuff. And I know here's another thing that people have to work on, that I work on, and it's in trading. And you're talking about the same thing, but I'm going to put a story on it. Is you're somewhere with your family or with whomever, and you're thinking about the next place you're going. You're never present,
Right.
right? And that's what trading is. If you're never present and you're thinking about, what's you're too far ahead, you're not present, then you screw up what something might have happened. You know what I mean? Like this head fake down in here,
Right.
because you're just too caught up in what's next, what's next, what's next. But sometimes nothing's next. Now you could sit and sometimes never make a trade, correct, during the course of a session.
Yeah.
And there's just not
Absolutely.
many opportunities for it. If, let's say, you're sitting here, you got a news source, let's say you're sitting here and President Xi, I mean, this is a surprise comment. That's the definition of a surprise. But President Xi says, we've got it all set. We're flying to Mar-a-Lago next week. We're making this happen. you're buying the S&Ps, right?
Yes.
And you're going to buy as many as you can.
Yeah.
And you feel you're going to get it within 5 handles.
I think it'd probably be within 10. I mean, but I would be fairly quick, I think.
Yeah. And within 10, there's at least another 10, 20 coming, at least.
Right. Right.
So you know where you're at. You know you're not going to get it on the spot. We should get it within the first handle or two, but whatever. All the algorithms got it. You know,
Yeah.
but you get it within the first 10. You're buying it with two hands, so to speak. And is that well? That's pretty black and white. But any black and white comment, we go back above 2,900 and start doing what we were doing before the breakdown.
I think so. I mean, if they get this resolved, I think they go back up there. I don't know if we make new highs until it's signed, but I think that would be a pretty good thing for the overall market.
And something uncertainty out of the way, it
Yeah.
has to go up. And that's another thing is this is being able to trade. There's so many guys out there that don't understand how the news affects. And I think your podcast with Brad will help people understand how to actually trade news. If you don't catch the initial move, maybe you didn't want to catch it. And you don't
Right.
want to be at the top. Here's the thing. A lot of people are catching stuff late. And it's another reason why you said the computers could never change the edge a stupid news event will give you, right?
Right.
They're always exaggerating it. But you got the retail buying it like, well, this comic came out. Yeah, but it came out and you missed the first 30 points. You got to be careful. You got that rubber band stretched. So
Yep.
your biggest thing that you're always working on is your pain of anxiety and not being patient. When you're in a zone, you're trading well, you're patient, and you're letting the market talk to you. That's fair to say?
Yeah, that's fair to say. I mean, yesterday was a good example of like I sat on my hands and waited, and I had an idea of what I thought the news would be that would give us the rally and how I would trade into that.
All right, let me get to some questions in the chat
Sure.
box, and then we'll wrap it up. If you don't mind
No
answering some
problem.
questions. Some of them you answered already just by going through it. Let me ask a couple of, let me read them first. How do you determine? Well, you answered that already. How you determine you were bearish. Um, here. So you were bearish to start the day and we're up, but you've sat on your hands, haven't done anything. When would you
Well,
execute
I did make one trade and I lost money on it, but
selling it?
selling it, yeah. It was the S&Ps, and they were trading at. Pull up my chart here. We were trading at. This happened. It correlates to what you have on the screen there, right around 1023.
1023. Okay, in this area.
Mm-hmm. So it was. You see we have those highs that are right there, and this is the Nasdaq chart, but I was trading the S&Ps.
Oh, let me go back. You're right. Let me go to the Nasdaq. I can pull up a similar Nasdaq chart.
No, that was the Nasdaq. This is the S&Ps. This is it.
Yeah, right. This is the one you were in though, right? The spooks at
Mm-hmm.
9 or 1023. That would be right in here.
Yeah, right in here. So what happens is that this chart's what is this? 1 minute chart?
This is a 4 point and figure, so 4 PNF. It's like you don't use PNF.
I don't, but
It's like a range chart. Only it's not,
okay.
a range chart's always 4 ticks, but this is so when it'd be easy for you to understand when when a price is going down, if it's a down, let's say this arrow's a down bar and it's a number 4, whatever
Mm-hmm.
the lower the move is, ends up being,
Okay.
if it ever retraces 4 ticks, a new bar will form. And if finds the high, whatever retraces 4 ticks lower, this bar will form. And so you'll get this. And if it's a long up bar, that means it kept going without ever pulling back 4 ticks off whatever the high was. Does
Gotcha.
that make sense? So that's
Yeah.
what I was like. But go ahead.
So
So that's it.
we made a high and it was right at we broke through the 39 quarters. We had tested it like 3 times and then finally we broke through it.
Okay.
and we popped through it. So what your chart doesn't show is that we went up and we went up to like 41s, and then we came back down to the 39 halves. And I thought, well, that seemed like they may have squeezed everybody out, and we should come back in and stay within in this range. And I'm going to take a shot at this, and my out is anything that's a new high.
So wait, these were the old highs right in here, and then they squeezed above it,
Mm-hmm.
and you're somewhere in this chop. You're
Yeah,
looking for a breakout to the
right,
downside.
right, exactly. So I'm selling them somewhere around in there. I think I was selling like the 28.40s, with my out being the 41 quarters or 41 halves.
So you avoided taking all this heat in case that happened.
Right. And then we got some sort of headline that drove it up and stopped me out immediately. But my thought was like, well, we got through those 39 quarter highs, and it just kind of perked up there a little bit. And I thought, well, we should come back. We should come back off, and then maybe we could start the down move. It didn't
Well,
work out.
yeah, you get
And
new
I
highs, you get
lived
all
with
these
that.
longs, you give them all time to get long, get long, get long. So it's not a bad idea at all. It's actually a good trade because you executed it, waited for it, and cut loss.
Hmm. So that was the one shot I took. It didn't work. So I thought, well, okay, I'm okay with I'm okay with it because the risk that I was taking was I didn't do it with very big size, but I risked a handle and a half with the potential to make five.
So it's like a losing trade. You don't even consider a trade because it's so small. If you're wrong,
Yeah,
and if you're right, it adds up to something.
right. And it gets me started on what I think could be a down day. Now I don't. My idea was blown out of the water, so I just stepped back and was like, okay, I'll reevaluate later on.
Will you trade all day?
Some days depends on how busy we are. If we're really slow, I try to not be involved in the like mush that's going on throughout most of the day. I like the morning and I like the afternoon.
But I mean, will you? Let's say it's a one of those slower days. Will you come back, sit in front of your screen, even if you're not trading? Will you sit in front of your screens most days?
Yeah, I will because I'm also trading other stuff. I'm trading
That's right.
stocks,
And
and
you
so
and
I'm,
Brad took.
a lot of my day is spent like just researching and reading news and looking for news stories that I can play, even if they're for like smaller stocks.
I see. And you and Brad are constantly communicating throughout the
Yeah,
session.
yeah, we communicate every day.
You have to have that. Could you imagine not having a trading buddy?
Oh my god, I go insane.
In a lot of people, it's a lonely business, even if you're successful.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter. Because even if you're successful, you're going to hit a rut.
yeah, it's just good to have somebody to talk to, and that's I think why your group is probably really good for people.
You got to, but it's got to be the right person. So the group that
Mhm.
could go into a team room that we have, which is a different room where they actually talk to each other, like they're sitting next to each other, and then they could build relationships from there. It's just the opportunity. You're not just getting any old guy to come in there. They had to go through kind of a program, and so you kind of filter out the people who want the holy grail, or they have a $250 trading account and they want to make leverage that into 500,000. You weed them out, and
Right.
the people asking questions like, well, what is a bid and what is this? Well, no, they would have already learned that to be in that environment, because you got to have similar experiences in order to create relationships. That's why when you guys all started, you went into one room, right? You
Yeah.
mix and match people there. Well, they kind of did, but they kept newer guys together
Right.
in groups. Because you came in with, did you come in the same group with Brad or just around?
Yeah. No, I was right around then. We were all we you know how we did those classes and
Right.
stuff. Yeah, he was in my class.
I never had that. Kind of wish I did, but there was no structure. We Ed told me first day, if you see something, trade it. Honest to God, I remember because first he shows me the dome, or it was not a dome, it was a order book, and here's how you buy it, here's how you sell it. Now he knew I was from the floor, so he knew I knew bids, offers, sell, buy, market orders. Here's how you buy or you sell. You do this. If you see something, trade it. Good luck. He walked away.
Good
And,
luck.
and I want to say I wasn't on Sim. I want to say I traded real from day one, but that I don't remember. They had the price ladder when you started, though. TT had already rolled that out, right?
Yeah, I mean, I originally started on the old Globex machine where it was a green and black screen, and you had to manually enter the price. There was no like point and click. There was no mouse trading.
Oh wow. I remember those Globex terminals because
Yeah.
the guy that brought me into the business had it. It's all keyboard.
Yep.
It looked like on Trading Places, if people
Yeah.
remember that.
Exactly.
That was Globex, and that was in 1983.
Yeah.
That movie, plus that movie and the guy that my parents was the son of my parents' friends got me, knowing that that business existed. And so, did you grow up in Chicago or in the area?
No, I grew up in Central Illinois, Bloomington.
So, what got you into the CME or into the business?
You know, when I was in high school, my dad, because we have a bunch of farmland down there, and my dad had a big book of Knight Ritter commodity charts because he liked to mess around in the commodity markets a little bit because he had it for trading grains for the farm. And he showed me the chart, and I was like infatuated with like the charting and the leverage of it. And then when I was 16, we came up and visited the floor, and I was like, that's exactly what I want to do. I've just been enamored with the whole trading side of things since a young age.
Do you remember the other Brad? What the hell? I can't remember his name. Brad.
Wojciech?
No, he was the analyst, right? He was
Yeah,
with
Brad Wojciech was the analyst.
right. No, Brad. He traded a lot of Boone. Um, well, anyways, he had lighter hair.
Hmm.
Brad. Why can't I think of his name? Good guy. But anyways, great trader, good guy, everything else. He started in southern. He lived in on a farm, and
Uh-huh.
I remember asking him a long time, why did you get in the this business? You way down south. So my grandfather said the guys making money are the guys trading grains in Chicago. So don't do this, do that.
It's
He said
true.
it in a southern drawl, and it was funny. But that's literally how he got to know about it, or else you wouldn't have really, even though there's two exchanges in Chicago, you can live around Chicago and not know what's going on there.
Oh yeah,
And it's like, but it's a passion that you get, that you have, and now that it's electronic, it's accessible, but it will bring you to your knees, and it'll drive you to your weak points if you're not fighting up against it, talking with people. Uh,
absolutely.
Another question: Has Brett found the transition into trading stocks? Does he think it's much different than trading indices and futures? Would you elaborate
I
on strengths that carry over to stocks, or how would you answer?
so
Elaborate on that.
the answer to that is that it's some things are very similar, but what I've noticed is that the time frame is much longer when it comes to trading like stories and ideas with stocks. Whereas futures, there it seems to everything is much more of a macro picture as opposed to like a you know more micro picture, so to say, because overall, like the S&P market basically reflects what's going on in our wide scale economy, right? Whereas if you're trading a single stock, like say Twitter, well, it is affected by the overall market, but it also has an individual underlying story which affects the price. And sometimes that takes longer to play out because people don't tend to move in and out of that single stock in the same way they would in and out of the index as a whole.
That's a good way to answer it. So you got to be more patient with a position, but you still have to have your risk controls and obviously everything else.
Oh yeah, the risk controls and the trading is still the same, but you don't have to be. You're not going to miss your. You're not going to miss your trade because you're 3 minutes late.
Will you do all your short on an option play, or you?
No, usually I mean it just depends. So
Yeah.
there are some plays that I mean this is completely different than what we're talking about, but for some stocks that I like to have a story, I'm like, well, this thing's overbought and it's not going to go much higher, so I'm willing to take the risk of being short, but there's more to be made just by being short premium, being short calls, because I don't think it's going to go up. A good example of that would be the marijuana stocks. I played played them for the last 6 months, just selling calls and not necessarily being short outright.
It's a bearish play either way,
It's
right?
a, it's a bearish play, right? So I'm only collecting the premium, which at some points it's been pretty high. But if you look at where those are, I don't know how much higher they're going to go until there's some sort of performance that warrants their pricing right now. I think they're all overpriced
Why?
because I've had a couple of people that don't know anything about stocks ask me which marijuana stock they should buy, including so that is a big red flag to me when somebody's like, well, I've been looking at the marijuana stocks, and what do you think about this one? I'm like, that's a when Joe Q Public is all the rage about a certain stock or certain sector, to me that says it's probably overpriced.
Yeah. And do you still wait though, or you still find an area to sell against?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, selling options isn't just blindly selling an option. It's
But my point is,
still,
it's like you heard that you don't go in and look. You look for stocks that might have stupid news to run them up, and then you
sure.
got it.
Yes, exactly. So that's what I spend a lot of the day researching is just like screening through stocks and looking for anything that might have an interesting news story to play.
It's almost like the tech bubble, right? In a way, but
For
not in
marijuana,
the pot, the all the
yeah,
marijuana stocks.
yeah. I mean, a good example of that is a Kronos Group. Um, they had a big investment stake from Altria last December or November, and they they got in and it was right around like $12.25 American. I mean, it's all Canadian, but and so when they're trading up at $20 a share, like, is it that easy that just because Altria stamps their name on it and gives them a bunch of money, that Altria should have doubled their investment value? That doesn't make sense. They haven't done anything.
Yeah, and that
So,
how short of a period of time did it go from 10 to 20?
well, it went from right at the beginning of the year in January. I think it rallied up in like 2 weeks.
Do you still wait for a little pop to sell?
Mm-hmm.
So you got the
I do.
$10, but then you still wait for something stupid to drive it up.
Right. So it's trading at 15 and a half. They just had earnings last week. So I looked to sell as soon as I read the earnings report. I sold it pretty much that morning. And now I'm just looking to continue to sell calls in it. And if they go against me and they're in the money, I don't mind. I'll continue to write them because I think the thing's overvalued and I'll just roll it into the following month or the following week because they have weekly options.
Do they like and Brad touches upon divergence with earnings, right? So it goes
Hmm.
good earnings and it can't go up, things like that.
Right.
Do you also look at divergence between the sector and the individual stock that it's in
Sometimes, but not as much. That's more advanced than where I'm at right now in my growth process.
for stocks? You won't
Yeah.
look at the sector, like if
I,
it's an energy stock, the XLE, or
yeah, I mean, I do, but not. I don't put too much weight in it right now.
how about
I'm looking for just a simple news story. I try to keep it that simple.
like the index, like the S&Ps are strong and the stock can't rally. It's like a 600 up day in the Dow, and this stock is a dog. Well, that
Right.
you
So
don't
you try to look for what's the reasoning behind that? Like you said, the why. Why is it not rallying? And see if there's, you know, what kind of news is behind that.
I think the stupid news idea to just keep it that simple is great
Yeah, and that's pretty much what all my trades are. That's the one thing that I know makes me money.
and very applicable in the futures.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a with just fading a rally that shouldn't have happened, wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for some stupid stuff that trickled down the wire.
Right. It's just trading off of other traders, basically, or trading off the public momentum.
One good one though that the three Spotify
Hmm.
that was an 11. This was a cheaper stock, and where it was like I thought undervalued was I had my niece who was 25 say how much she loved it. I didn't know what it was. This is like 10 years ago. My brother, who was 55, said how much he loved it. My dad, who was 80, asked how much he loved it. I'm like, 3 generations love this thing. What is it? And that's one of those things where they're not asking me about the stock. They just tell me about the product,
Right.
you know? Um, so another question, would you consider today stupid news with Trump's comments last night that have run us up 50 points from the overnight low?
Yes, yes. I think that that's essentially why I'm bearish, but I'm willing to admit that sometimes it doesn't always work. And so I have to, even though I think that that's stupid news, and I think that we're going to go back down to 2,800, I have to wait for the right technicals to get me in. But yes, I think it is stupid news. I think that the standoff on the trade deal is a bigger thing than what most people know. But I'm willing to admit that I don't know everything.
Yeah. And wait, you could be wrong and not lose money.
Right.
Like today, you even got a trade that was a loser, but with small size, small risk, so it didn't even like matter. You
Right.
didn't have to consider it a losing trade. Now, if you still had that position on and you added to it, all of a sudden it became an idea with a big imprint, negative imprint for no reason, all because you couldn't exit and admit you're
Right.
wrong. Yeah.
Right. And it's the why did I get out? Well, because it shouldn't have made a new high, and it did, and that was my out, and so I can live with that. I can live with being wrong. I can't. I have trouble living with being stupid.
Being wrong and being stupid could be two different things.
Yeah.
You know, it shouldn't have, that's another thing I say. You use the word shouldn't. It did what it shouldn't have done.
Hmm.
And that's could be with a divergence or all these other things. But I think that the way you frame it, the whole stupid news idea, because it's going to happen all the time, especially when you open yourself up to all the thousands of stocks there are out there.
Yeah. Exactly.
What
You
was
know,
the Tesla? Go ahead.
but there's a ton of stories within like the futures if you want to trade like any economic release or oil stats. Those all provide opportunities if you've done your homework. You know, if you can take a look at what the overall picture of the market is, and should this news that we're getting on, I think we have retail sales this week, try and understand what the number is supposed to be, what the influences are, and where the market's at, and whether or not the move that comes after that, because you're not going to catch the release.
No, right.
That's just not happening. But you can decipher sometimes whether or not the reaction to the number is warranted.
How would you know if it's? Give me an example for that. Like with the news, like retail sales comes in double than expected. The X autos is better than expected, and they pop them. Will you think after? I remember Dave teaching me this.
Hmm.
If it was truly strong, why did it come back to where it started? Would you wait
Right.
till that happens, or would you want to be short before it goes back to where it started?
No, if in my head I thought, well, these are the underlying reasons for us having a strong number, and the risks were that we're going to have a strong number, and then it does come out strong, and I don't mean just strong, I mean higher than expectations,
Yeah,
then I will start to say, well, maybe that was played into it a little bit going into the number, and I will be willing to take a shot almost immediately after the number.
I like that. So so even though it was a miss, it's not a big surprise that it was a miss.
Right.
What numbers are unemployment, ISM, beyond those two? What are decent?
I think retail sales can provide some opportunity. Occasionally, unit labor costs, it's a sneaky number, but it can be there. The oil stats each week, because they have API stats that come out on
Right.
Tuesday afternoon. CPI occasionally. Um,
Will you always do, let's say, because API, we talk about this every Wednesday. API
mhm.
was a big build of 5 million. It was only supposed to be uh, minus 500,000. They beat it by 5 million. Big move to the downside. It's a bearish number. It's priced in. So the DOE comes in 9:30 the next day, and it comes in plus 5 million, let's say. You'd sell a spike.
Yes,
I mean, that's
I'd
kind
be
of a
looking to, right.
right. Or it comes in plus 3. It's
Hmm.
like, okay, without the 5 I knew yesterday, and the market knew yesterday, okay, that's bullish. I'll keep my hands off it. But they priced this in.
Right. So in that case, like if you get a big build in the APIs and the market sells off, and then in the next day you come in and you get just a marginal build and they still sell it off, that's when I would probably look to fade that sell off.
That's what I meant. You're right. Because it's
Yeah.
still back to back bearish number, and you're looking in and of itself to buy it because it's not a surprise.
Right.
But doing a little like that's an obvious one, or it's not obvious, but it's an obvious one because something else came out. So the research is easy. Where did
Right.
API come out? Give me an example of how you could research retail sales other than you know what the consensus is. That's not a secret. The consensus are, let's say, 2%, 2.3% for X autos. That's where it's supposed to
Mhm.
come out. What underneath that could get Brent to say, if it prints 3 or 4, yeah, that's hot, but it's expected.
Well, if you just do a Google search of a retail sales number preview, you can get a bunch of different websites that talk about the different factors that are going into this month's number and why they're predicting it to be where it's at. And so you can get an underlying feel of like, well, what's kind of driving the number this month?
So even
You
though the
know?
consensus is 2%, let's say,
Hmm.
you could find that it won't be a surprise if it comes out hot, 3,
Right,
4, based on what you read.
right,
I think that's awesome. So then when you do at 7:30, get a little spike, you could sell it. That's a quick one because they don't react that much to retail sales like they used to.
right. No, not like they used to. It used to be one of the bigger ones. It's not anymore.
Unemployment is still a reacted number, ISM,
Yep.
but you could find underlying stories, what you're saying, to say that, yeah, it's a surprise if you just compare it to the consensus, but it's really not if you did a little homework. Is that
Yeah,
what you're saying?
exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, that's something all my years, I never dug down that extra layer to fade, but it all comes together and be like, well, for the API, I have, but that's an easy one.
Right.
You dig one more, you dig like finding an API for these other numbers.
Hmm.
It's in the market. Yeah, but it came
Yeah.
in higher. No, but it's overbought now. That's awesome. Here's what I'm going to do, guys. If there's any more questions, pop them in. If not, I'm going to pop in the, no, I'm going to pop in, copy, paste. Let me make sure this goes out to everyone. This is the link that'll take you right to Brad and Brent Stupid News podcast that they are going to start doing maybe every other week when it warrants
Yeah,
taking
we're
the
not.
time.
I don't want to just put out like empty content. Like if people are going to listen, they should know they're going to get something that is interesting and not just us babbling.
It might even be a play.
Yeah,
What
usually it
was
will
the
be.
Tesla play?
Oh, so the Tesla play was it was a we talk about that a little bit on there and talk about how the change in perception of how like the how a company being willing to be flexible on what they were perceived to be inflexible on can change the perception of that stock for the day. And so Tesla, they needed to raise money. That was known after they had their earnings. And then they said they're going to raise money through a bond offering, and the stock bounced a little bit on it, but then kind of faded off at the end of the day because everybody said, well, they need to raise more money. Now, I think I even said this on the podcast. Like, I don't know enough about Tesla and their finances to say how much they need to raise or even whether they need to raise any. That's not my specialty. But they did come out the next day and say, well, we're actually going to raise a little bit more because we think we need more. And so in my mind, that was a change in that changed the public's perception of what Tesla was willing to do in order to become profitable. And that was widen their debt load, get more money. And so that, in my mind, was enough for them to be like, okay, well, that is actually a much more positive news story than the original, like, we're going to just raise money.
Where was the trade? Was
So the trade was just to buy Tesla that day because I felt like, and so that's a kind of goes back to the whoever asked the question about like do stocks and futures trade the same? It, yes and no, but for that one, it's easy. It was easy because it's stocks move slow, and when they get going in a direction during the day, they tend to just stay in that direction.
So when the stupid news, though, component of this particular example was the public saying they need to raise more, and
Hmm.
you're like, well, how do they know?
Right.
And then it came out that so they cheapened up the stock.
It's not necessarily like so much of a stupid news as it is like it's a way to just trade the news, and how does it change people's perception.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what the stupid news is like how does news affect people's perception of what's going on with the price of whatever's underlying.
Is it only stupid when it's wrong? Like,
No.
yeah. So like with Amazon, because I listened to this podcast, and Amazon, the stupid news got it expensive with Warren Buffett going to take a stake, right?
Correct.
That made it an expensive play or a bearish play. But why? And I understand that. Give me the underlying why it's
So
not that, because it's just not that big of a deal.
well, so here's how that one works out. Is it so Warren Buffett says we have a stake in Amazon and talks about how great Amazon is. Well, Amazon, you had earnings and they had sold off after their earnings. Things are getting tougher for them. So Warren Buffett says we are initiating a stake, or we initiated a stake in Amazon. The stock opens up like 50 points higher. Right? It's not that much for Amazon, but it's still like 3%, 2.5, 3%. And it started to move up a little bit more throughout the day. And that was simply just from one guy saying, we have a stake in this and we believe in this company. Well, that doesn't change anything. Should it automatically be higher because Warren Buffett said this? Well, maybe down the road. Maybe down the road, he's right. He has a good track record for investing and stuff, but that's not really the point of the trade. The point of the trade is like, if you buy it 50 points higher than where Warren Buffett does, it's just not, money's not that easy to be made.
Right.
So
Right.
the object of the trade is like, well, it's going to come back down to the area where it was before Warren Buffett announced his stake in it,
And did
right?
it?
Yeah, but I mean, we got some help because of all the. I was
Yeah.
actually a little frustrated because we had all the trade talks and everything, and that sent the market down right away. And we never. I wanted to add more. I only did partial because I have a rule of like, I don't want to put my full position on the day of because it's like the chasing the trade kind of thing. Like I
Yeah.
have to be patient, and so my real rule is to wait 2 days after the news comes out. I didn't
That's
get to that.
that's such a great way to put it. It's like, do you think it's that easy to buff after 50? That's a 2.5, 3% rally. Buffett saying that he bought some. The edge, the buy was to buy it before he says it, knowing
Yeah,
he's gonna say it.
right.
That's where the edge might be.
Exactly.
But then opposite, once all the other assholes buy it, wherever they buy it, all the way up. Because you got them all, and now they still hold it. They still got it, and
Yeah.
they'll have it forever, probably.
Right, and that's okay. But there's people who are trying to make that quick buck. It's not that quick. It's not that easy.
Yeah, exactly. And right, it's not, and it's like I like that old highs, that 2,800 even. Is it going to be that
Mhm.
easy for those guys that just bought it down there? Maybe. And times are there are times it is that easy
Right.
for guys. That's why they'll keep doing it. But is it really not going to get drawn back down there? So it's like, but you could see why that's an edge. Back to
Yeah.
the why. The stupid news, the Buffett. Well, but it's Buffett. Yeah, I get it. And maybe it's good where he bought it, but that's not where we're at right now. We're 3%.
Right. Yeah.
He bought it $50 lower. Um, and then so you get this is so applicable to trading. Just the explanation is great though. You know what I mean? It's like giving people confidence of knowing why allows you to be more patient and then realize it wasn't a guess. Now, how
Right.
great was that? You know what I mean? When you were putting trades on, and when you know you're right, it's not a guess. You know,
Right. It's
it
a well thought out decision, and those are the ones that are always going to make you the money.
when they're consistent, and when they don't, you manage the hell out of it
Hmm.
by just getting the heck out. So this Amazon, did Tesla work out too?
Tesla worked out that day. I mean, I got out of the trade by the end of the day. And the Amazon one worked out, but I was a little more frustrated with the Amazon one because I had on a fraction of the position that I wanted to have on. And I think it worked out so quickly because of the trade talks sent the market down. And so Amazon went down in sympathy with it. And so I never had a chance to really put on my full trade. So I only got a fraction of what I thought I should have been able to do on it.
We're gonna we're gonna wrap it up the way we started. I didn't mean to keep you over an hour,
Oh,
but
it's okay. I enjoy talking.
this was great. I'm gonna start though the way with that Steenbarger. I brought him up, so he was a psychiatrist for Kingstree before I think Dave brought in that Mike. It might have been where Dave got the idea, but anyway, this Steenbarger trades. I don't know how much, but he actually has traded, so he understands more about the business than that Mike would have, right? So when he's
Hmm.
working with traders, he's got and has had skin in the game. So he doesn't only have the background of the mind, but also the trading. So he's more valuable to people, and I think what he says resonates more. And I'm bringing him up again because he says something that's important: is you're always looking for your edge, how to refine it, how to add something to it, right? It just
Sure.
right, and that's why moments like this to understand it better. To you don't have to change it 180 degrees. You just have to know why you've got a little bit of an advantage over someone else, like selling Amazon 50 points after the rally. Everybody and think it's going to be that easy. It's only that easy for the smart money that bought it right before they knew he was going to say it.
Yeah.
And that's their edge,
Right.
and they're selling it with you.
Yeah.
Only they're selling it to cover short, maybe reverse, and you're getting short. So it's this is not just a great hour and 15 minutes. Their podcasts are great. You guys will see that. Listen to it. Um, the next one's coming up when?
We hope to have it out by this week. I would
Great.
say tomorrow maybe we'll probably get one out. But like I said, I want to make sure that whenever we put one out that it's like meaningful information. So if we don't
Hey,
have a trade, we probably won't put one out.
no, that's good. So there's, like you said, there's not empty content. The clip is a nuclear explosion would be a disaster. Was that a real headline?
Wait, what is that?
Wait, you got the stupid news podcast. So maybe Brad did this, but there's the artwork behind it. Here, let me show you.
Oh, it was just something he pulled from the
A nuclear explosion would
oh
be a
yeah.
disaster.
He just pulled that from the web. That's funny.
So that's something that would drive something down,
Oh yeah.
but it's like just the media sensationalizing something.
Right. Exactly.
That's the first thing I thought of when I read that, is that would get some panic that's not warranted because the media does what they're supposed to do, and that's just over dramatic about it.
Dude, totally.
So there's news that's important, and then there's the stupid news. And you would say there's a lot more stupid news.
Way more. I mean, that's what the media does. They hype stuff up and then it gets people excited in a frenzy to either buy or sell a stock. I mean, you can have stupid news that moves the stock down or up.
Yeah. And you're okay with being stupid. What was it that you said? You're
I don't
okay
mind
with
being I don't mind being wrong. I just don't like being stupid.
Yeah. That'll keep people covering their trades a little quicker. The other thing that's great for guys that are learning to trade or maybe struggling is these micros that they introduced, Brent, because they're liquid. They're a buck and a half. The commissions are a little high, but I think they'll get driven lower. But you feel like you have skin in the game without too much, so it's better than a demo, but
Yeah,
it's better than 1250 a tick because you could trade multiple contracts without, with the ability to scale either in or out, but you
that's a
don't
good
feel the,
testing ground.
oh man, I'm telling you, it's been, and I said, this will be great if it's liquid. And it is. If you
Yeah,
pull it
I
up,
mean,
it's pretty
I
great.
I don't see how it couldn't be liquid. I mean, there's got to be some sort of arb that somebody has already programmed in there.
No, there's no doubt. I just didn't know if it would trade. You know what I mean? There'd be a lot traded at every price, and there is.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah,
great.
yeah. It's actually got some volume, liquidity. I mean, traded volume. So you could get in and out with.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. So if you put two on, it's $3 a tick instead of 25. For a guy that's learning, he ain't going to start with two or three, nor should he. But with
Well,
the micros, he could
well, that's good. That gives them ability to learn how to like peel off and add to and whatnot.
with skin in the game.
Yeah, with skin in the game, right?
Yeah. Because you got it's not the whole sim thing's not, to me, I've always said the sim is to learn how to use the mechanics of the software. But at some point,
Right.
it's but it's expensive in these futures because commissions are a lot cheaper. But 12.50 a tick, or even the Nasdaq at $5 a tick, you can't get out within a tick, so you're risking 15, 20 per one lot, and they move the futures. They're up
Yeah, and
and
I can
down.
see how that's significant size to have to trade more than a one or a two lot for some guys.
Now the Nasdaq micro is only 50 cents a tick.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So again, both are liquid and tradable. And I think the greatest thing for newer traders, or even if you're trading like shit, you know,
Yeah.
excuse my language, but you can just jump in there and still trade, but kind of on the practice field,
Right.
put you on special teams. But the other thing is, a lot of people know your nephew-in-law, or no, I'm sorry, your uncle-in-law. Do you call him Uncle Bruce? Don't tell me you call him Uncle Bruce.
I just call him Bruce.
Good. No, I like Bruce. He's the only thing I don't like about Bruce is he's from Indiana. He's a good guy.
Yeah, Bruce is a really great guy.
So that's your wife's uncle.
Yes.
Got it. All right. But you don't see him too often, I hope.
No, we see him maybe once a year at family events, but he's a
Yep.
good guy, good couple of kids and a couple grandkids.
Yeah, he is a good guy and they like him. I give him a hard time, but everybody likes him. Like I said, a lot of these guys are in a team room where they get to know each other. But
That's
and
fantastic. I
and
think
here's
what
the
you're
thing.
doing,
They could take like what you're talking about and collaborate. More eyes and ears on stuff that matters is powerful
it really is.
because you can't do all the research yourself. You'll get bogged down. But man, especially with the internet, it's not hard to pull stuff out as long
Yeah.
as you're channeling it into logical plays. And then with the guidance that the podcast you guys are doing, will make it
Yeah.
applicable to trading futures. The only thing with doing it in stocks, you don't have plays all the time, correct? Or it just takes.
No, just takes time.
But with
So that's
futures,
the
it
that's
could
the
be
patience part of it.
yeah. But then you'll have opportunities on the future side using the same concept.
Absolutely.
That's cool. Well, Brent, thanks again, man. This has been great. And maybe in a few months, come back and we'll see how everything is going. But everybody
Would
in the
love
chat,
to.
a lot of people are thanking you. So appreciate
Great. Thank you. Thanks for having me on, Anthony. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. And I think what you're doing is fantastic over there. I think you're filling a void that definitely needs to be filled.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that try to do this, but they never either traded, you know what I mean? And they sell
Hmm.
people indicators and garbage and stuff. And so I'm not saying I'm the only one that does it well, but it's like anything. Most people that do this don't do it good. And I think they don't give people any kind of better chance than they would have had. That's all I try to give people is a little bit better chance than they would have had they not done this. But it's all like bringing guys like you in and Brad and even this Steenbarger and other guys that just practical stuff that has shown that it could work and not be like a guess. But um, good luck with everything. And like I said, that podcast is awesome. Keep it up.
Right.
Don't let any, you can't do it without content. I get that. But when you have content, bang them out because I don't listen to stuff for a long time. And that one I did.
Great. Well, look for one to come this week. We'll send you out a alert on it.
Sounds good. Thanks again, Brett.
Thank you.
All right, buddy. Take care.
Take care.
I'll have this recording rendered in a few hours and have it up. Like I said, it was mostly audio, so it won't take long to render. But listen to that podcast, the Stupid News Podcast. It's good stuff. We'll see you guys tomorrow.